Welcome to the Masterful Morning Show.
It's a little cheesy, but we'll take it, right? What else though?
Taylos, as always, has kicked off our call with a joke. That's something that maybe viewers don't know about, but right before we go live, Taylos always hits us. So we're always ready for the show to begin. Welcome, guys. Welcome so much to the Masterful Morning Show. Today is a special episode because it's the first time we've had a live audience. So welcome to our live audience. Thank you for being here. We're so excited to have you. And we're so excited because we have our friend John Livesay here. Welcome, John, to the show.
Thanks for having me. We're going to have fun and give people some great tips on storytelling.
Yes, I'm so excited. I have considered John a mentor of mine for storytelling for 2 years when I first met him through a mutual friend, Billy Bross. He was teaching and he was actually doing elevator pitch fixing on a call, and I fell in love. And I could watch him do that all the time, and I think I have. I've watched him do it several times, and it's amazing. So we're actually going to get to that later in the show, where he's going to give you some quick fixes for your elevator pitches. But John is the author of Better Selling Through Storytelling. I've recommended this book several times to several of you before. It is a really thorough book in terms of going through all of the selling through storytelling, like everything in terms of mindset. A lot of our manifestors will love the language of abundance that John uses in here. It really speaks to us as masterful manifestors. And John has incredible stories, which we hope to hear so many of them in this one call, that he also shares a lot of them in here as well. So if you are loving every story that you hear today, you definitely want to make sure that you get in this book because he's got incredible stories to share. It's been an honor, John, to get to work with you. I became one of your first students when you launched your course, and It has been so exciting to be part of your world and be part of your community because it's just such a generous community of people who really have everyone's best interests in mind and want to always be giving value.
Yes.
So, John, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you want to share with our audience? And then I think we have some questions for you.
Great. Well, my own career began when I started selling multi-million-dollar mainframe computers and had to compete against IBM, which would say, oh, if you buy anything that's not IBM and it breaks, we're going to point our finger at the other vendor and you'll get fired. It was fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And that was my first awareness, Marian, that there's a lot of other things going on when people make decisions. It's an emotional decision, not just a logical one. Then I had a career in Los Angeles working for an ad agency, turning movies into commercials. And that's really where I honed my storytelling techniques. Because you have a 2-hour movie, you got to get it down to 30 seconds without giving away too much, but intrigue people enough to want to go see it. And then I had a third career selling advertising for big brands like W Magazine and GQ and Wired and Vanity Fair, and packaging that all together. And now the last 6 years or so, I get hired to get in front of sales teams to teach them how to get off what I call the self-esteem roller coaster, which I think is really relevant to everyone in your community, where we only feel good about ourselves if things are going great and bad about ourselves if things are not. And it's exhausting. I was on that roller coaster for years. My whole identity and self-esteem was, did I make my numbers, or did I win an award, or did I get laid off? And up and down and around. So I've created the course based on the book to allow people to digest how they can become a better storyteller, because that's my personal mission, is to help as many people as possible get in touch with their own stories and express them in a way that allows them to really get a sense of who they are beyond any one result.
That's awesome. I can completely relate to that up and down. And a lot of people that I talk to and help coach, it's a confidence issue. It's really getting that foundation there. What is your number one tip as far as helping someone break through that and get that foundation for confidence?
Well, it wouldn't be me if I didn't tell you a story. And I don't think Marian will be too upset if I tell this story. Part of what I do with my students after they go through my courses, I work with them in a private Facebook group. And we continue to work on refining their stories, whether it's an elevator pitch or any kind of other story they need to tell to get hired or join a company or grow their company with new clients. And she confessed that she was a little intimidated practicing her pitch in front of, quote, the pitch whisperer, which is what I'm known as. And I thought, oh, that's the opposite of the environment I want. I don't want anyone to be intimidated by me. So I said, does this come up often in other situations? Do you ever get intimidated with potential new clients? And it turns out, yes. So that is a total confidence issue. And I think the number one thing I can tell people is this Arthur Ashe quote, which is the key to success is confidence, and the key to confidence is preparation. And so I told a story to Marian and the other people in the Facebook group about a time I was interviewed by Larry King, and I was intimidated. And so those moments, we all have those moments where we get our confidence a little shaken, wondering, how did I get here? Am I good enough to be here? All those self-doubt things. So I think preparing for an interview really helps get your confidence up. And then just realizing that you don't have to prove anything to anybody else. And more importantly, you don't have to prove anything to yourself. And when we get to that place, we're truly free, where we're not intimidated by anything or anyone.
John, I have to interrupt and just say, I did my power poses before this interview because I was so excited. And also another thing that you have taught me, that's also in the course, is this idea of stacking our successes and just going through all the good things that we have done right before going through something that is nerve-wracking. And
right.
I still get very nervous, especially in your group. You have a high caliber community. So it's not just that I'm in front of the pitch whisperer, but I could also be in front of really awesome people. I met the creator of Pictionary at one of my last calls. It's just very intimidating sometimes for me because I put people on soapboxes. I put a lot of value on other people, but you're right. I belong in that room. I'm in the room on my own accord as well. And
yes.
I can stack my successes and prepare for that.
Because our mind will take over. And then I think this is what you're teaching your community, right? That we are the thinker thinking the thoughts. Our thoughts don't think of us. So when we have that awareness that I'm the director of the movie of my life, and if I can recast it, I can change the location. I know some people are moving from city to city. So you're like changing your movie set, and you can change who the characters are. And you can, if you start to get fearful and start playing out what I call a horror movie in your head, you're like, cut, I'm the director. And one of the things I love about the community from the students in my course is we're helping each other on their elevator pitches, and people get to hear that. And Rob, Angel's the guy who created Pictionary, and he was struggling getting his elevator pitch as clear and concise as he wanted. And then I was working with another student, Ellen, and she loved the game and played it with her kids and was really excited to meet him too. And then I had them switch. And I said, okay, Rob, now you tell Ellen, and Ellen, you tell what you're going to tell your family. So, because here's the premise of why that's so powerful. It becomes people's favorite part of taking the course. And I think it's completely in sync with what you and Melanie and Taylos are doing, which is we all want to be seen, we all want to be heard, and we all want to be acknowledged. And, when we're kids, we, jump in the pool, look at me, dad, mom, whatever, right? It didn't really happen if nobody saw it. And so how can we give that to our friends and our community when sharing an elevator pitch that a stranger you never met before says who you are and what you do? So I worked with Ellen on her little elevator pitch, and she was going to practice this to her kids and her husband, saying, "You're never going to believe who I met today. He created Pictionary, and he's got a book called Game Changer, and the book's all about taking the first step and not getting intimidated." And And then she went on to tell a little bit more about him. And so when I told him how happy she was to meet him, he said, "What's her address? I'm going to send her a signed copy of my book." So those little acts of kindness take down the intimidation factor, because, he is a busy guy and very successful, obviously, and yet he was touched by that story. And that's the magic of storytelling.
That's great, John. I remember when you worked with Melanie, Marian, and I on our pitches, and that was a real game changer for me, because being able to incorporate that story into making it relatable and people seeing themselves in it. What would you say is the secret sauce to having a good storytelling analogy for our pitch?
Well, I think a good elevator pitch, Taylos, needs to be three things. It needs to be clear, it needs to be concise, and it needs to be compelling. So if you have those three C's sort of written down on a piece of paper, notepad, Post-it note, whatever, and you are giving a practice to mutual friends, and like, here's what I'm going to say next time somebody says, "Hey, who are you? What do you do?" And so the elevator pitch is never really just a literal thing of, "Oh, I only use this when I'm in an elevator." The concept is, can you say in 90 seconds or less something that makes you memorable? And so the first box to check off is this concise? And I think the real secret sauce, Taylos, is, have you intrigued people enough to say, "Huh, that's interesting, tell me more"? That's when you know you have a great one. So that means you don't say everything you do. You keep it concise and a little compelling. Like, I can give mine if you want as an example as we get closer to working with people. But one of the things I say is I'm a pitch whisperer, and people say, "Wait a minute, I know what a dog whisperer is, I know what a horse whisperer is. What's a pitch whisperer?" That's great. If I've said that in my little elevator pitch, then people are intrigued enough to ask me, "What is it? How'd you get that name?" Then we're having a conversation.
Oh, John, I have to ask you to tell one of my favorite stories of yours, which is when you were one of the top 2 candidates for a keynote speaker.
Mm-hmm.
You know the story I'm talking about, that where you did the pitch whispering? I would love if you could tell us that story, because I think a lot of us really are always seeking ways to add more value. And I think you were just so creative in that.
Thanks. Well, part of what's in the course is this roadmap of how can I go from invisible to irresistible? And there's several rungs on that ladder. It's invisible, it's insignificant, which is even worse sometimes than invisible. And then it's interesting. And this is where a lot of people get stuck. Someone's interested, they're going to buy eventually, they wanted some information, and then you never get out of that state. It's like being stuck at the friend zone at work. And then you get to intriguing, and then you're at the irresistible, where they go, "You're it. We got to have you. Nobody, I don't care what it costs. This is worth it." So when I was pitching myself against another speaker, I'm very aware that it's the irony for this is I'm going to come teach people how to use storytelling as a sales tool while using it myself. So it's art imitating life. And they said, "It's up between you and another speaker. Have you ever spoken to another health organization before?" And all those questions can be like quicksand if you don't have an answer. So I said, "Well, I haven't done that. I've done some other things that are somewhat similar, but let me ask you a question. What was going to happen after whoever speaks? What's happening the rest of the 2 days?" "Oh, we're going to have an improv session where people in the audience are going to shout out objections to people role playing on stage. And we're going to try and help them get over that fear of objections." And I said, "Well, what if," one of my 2 favorite words, because it puts people in the right brain where imagination lives. I said, "Well, what if I stayed past the talk for that session and would be on stage when people are role playing, and if they got stuck, I could whisper in their ear what to say from my talk, and it would keep it going, because improvisation is all about yes and keep going, don't get stuck." And they said, "Oh my God, we never even thought of that. No one's ever offered that. We didn't even consider asking it. That would be amazing." So suddenly I was just at the interesting level. And I said, "What if," which made them intrigued. And then when they really thought the process through, that's what made me become irresistible. And then when I actually did it, people in the from the audience that were on stage said, "Oh, this is amazing. Can you be in my ear all the time? And you really are the pitch whisperer because you're whispering in my ear." And then I told that story to Inc. magazine, and they wrote an article about it. And so now that's really my hook, and we're all branding ourselves all the time. So if you Google the pitch whisperer, you'll see all kinds of interviews and content that I've done, and I've actually trademarked that. So I want to encourage all of you to start thinking of what is the one thing you can be known for that's going to make you memorable and stand out and show up in Google searches. So if you're ever being interviewed on a podcast or another show like this, and people go, "What was that guy's name again? What was the book title?" Oh, but I can, the pitch whisperer is all I have to remember.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, John, should we go into elevator pitches,
Sure.
or would you like to?
No,
Yeah?
let's do it.
Well, I would love to introduce you to our VIPs on the call today. We have Adrian. She is going to introduce herself, and I guess, do you want to actually talk about elevator pitches?
Yes, let me
how
do that
how it
first.
works? Would you like me to share the slide?
That would be fantastic, because I find that when people have a visual as I'm speaking, it really helps. So the 5 steps.
All right, so I just want to let you know, Adrian, you're going to go first, and then we'll have Ryan, Marla, and Rose. Okay?
Perfect. So I'm going to give all of you an example of an elevator pitch I use, and then we're going to break it down into these 5 steps that allow you to do it. The biggest mistake people make when someone says, "Hey, tell me about yourself. What do you do?" Whatever, is they say, "Oh, I'm a lawyer. I'm a blah, blah coach. I do this." Or they think it's an invitation for a 10-minute monologue, and it's not. Remember, the goal is to intrigue people to say, "Tell me more." So if someone says, "What do you do?" And I say, "Well, you know how so many salespeople at big companies struggle to not be seen as just a commodity. So they bring me in for those annual sales meetings as the pitch whisperer, and I teach their sales teams how to turn boring case studies into compelling case stories. And when that happens, they all become revenue rock stars, because whoever tells the best story gets the sale." So that was clearly under 90 seconds, yes? And let's bring up those 5 steps. You can bring all 5 up at once if you want.
Sorry, I'm not used to...
That's okay. We had it a second ago, and then it went away. So if you share your screen again, and then pull up that particular slide, I'll guide you through what to click on.
There we go. We can just leave it at that.
Okay. All right, because there's a little button right where the cursor is that makes the whole thing fill up. You see it there at the bottom?
That's how we lost the slide.
Oh, we lost the slide then. Okay, fair enough. All right, so you can see how I said, "You know how." That's the opening line for everyone's elevator pitch, because it keeps it conversational. And then you go right into, who do you help? It's still not about what you do. And in my case, I said, "You know how salespeople at companies." So now we know who I help. And then I inserted the word struggle to not be seen as a commodity, where it's just about the price. And so then I explained, I'm the pitch whisperer. I come in as a speaker at their sales meetings, teach them how to tell stories. And then what is life like after my talk? Whoever tells the best story gets a sale, and they become revenue rock stars. Does that make sense? Any questions with the format before we start practicing? Again, I really want to re-emphasize, if we didn't at the first, that this is not about intimidation. This is about celebrating progress. So, and how many of you, can I just see real quick in the chat, how many of you feel like a perfectionist? Can I see some, yeah, just put yes in there. If you feel like a perfectionist. So I am having a little trouble seeing the chat room with the slide, but everyone else, you can see it, right? Marian, you can see the chat?
Yes, we have yes, yes, and maybe.
Maybe. Okay. So I want to invite everyone to celebrate being a progressionist, a new word, which means you celebrate your progress. I always start my meetings by celebrating what have we accomplished since the last meeting. Open with progress. Our brains are wired for it. That's why Fitbit works, tracking all that stuff. Video games, you got to the next level. So this is all about making progress, not perfection. Okay. with that said, I think you said Adrian is first up, right?
Yep.
Okay, Adrian. Let
All
me,
right. Hello.
hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, John.
All right, so let's start with this format. Does having it on the slide help?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
All right. So, you know how when someone goes through a traumatic experience, especially women, it can decimate their life and they struggle to regain any type of autonomy or self-esteem again? Well, what I do is help build businesses that address actionable help that people can incorporate into their life to more quickly get their feet back under them and then also thrive and enjoy not only a life again, but a better life.
Mm. Okay. That's a good first time. But the goal is we want to make it good to great, right? So
Absolutely.
here's a note for everybody. The better you explain the problem, the better you put your empathy hat on, the more people think you have their solution. So let me ask you a couple questions. You have an ideal audience for this. Obviously, it's women, you said. And what is the trauma that happens to them? Is it loss of a job? Is it addiction? What is the trauma for the most part?
The specialty that I work with is women who've been through some type of sexual abuse or their child's been through sexual abuse or a severely abusive childhood or partnership relationship.
Great. Okay. So having that specific, because remember, it's an emotional tug at people's heartstrings and they open their purse strings. It also makes you much more memorable than just a generic person handling trauma. That specialty is the secret sauce for you. And also, I want you to express this even more conversationally, even though it's so serious, and less like a grocery list. I need tomatoes, I need oranges and milk. I do abuse, child abuse, your abuse, relationship, So don't be afraid to, take some pauses on that. Okay. Now, part of the reason I always like to work with people is what makes you interested in this? You qualified for this? Did you or someone you know in your love life and your family have experienced some of this?
Yeah.
And do you mind sharing that?
No, I don't mind. I usually do.
Okay. And what is that story?
Well, I went through a childhood where my parents did their best, but we didn't all understand effective communication verbally. So there was a lot of other types of communication going on that wasn't with words. And then in attempting to escape that later, it was just a very challenging childhood. Again, my parents tried their best, but in trying to escape that, I ended up jumping out of the frying pan into the fire and very hastily married someone who turned out to have an unbelievable history of abusing others. And then it happened to me because of that, and then to my child because I had a child with him. And so I then was able to escape and decided I was not going to be another number, and I wasn't going to be like the women that I heard coming into me where I worked that would tell me this sad story. Yep. And they would still be stuck. And so I said, I'm not going to be that.
Right. And just to clarify, we're not talking physical abuse, we're talking sexual abuse, both with you and your child?
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. Well, the good news is Marian's recording this, correct? So if I say something you don't catch it all, you can hear it back on the replay. Correct, Marian? Yes. Okay. And so what is it that you offer? Is it a coaching program? Is it an online course? Is it a retreat? How do you work with women who need this help?
So that's where I get stuck, because I have two ways that I help. I am the co-founder of a nonprofit that's called the United Trauma Awareness Foundation, and we spread awareness of all types of trauma, but help people to understand that no matter what your trauma is, you can triumph over it with different types of trauma-informed modalities.
Okay.
Then the smaller niche business is my own business, Adrienne Ruan LLC. I have a program called Thrive Alive. And because of the experiences, the sexual abuse experiences, typically it's sexual abuse, these women have really decimated self-esteem, and that usually results in a health condition and also in a lot of struggles socially. And so using the skills that I've learned both professionally and in overcoming it myself and still learning, I help them, I customize a very, very tailored plan. And I will also help them with court, especially communicating with court personnel, investigative people, to help them not come across as a victim, but as a strong person with a fact-filled story that helps them win their cases.
Okay, love it. All right, so I'm going to recommend on your elevator pitch kind of concepts that you focus just on one thing. Because remember, if we get them on the one thing, the Thrive Alive, they'll be intrigued enough and they can find out about the nonprofit after that. The analogy I always use is, remember, Amazon just sold books first. So be known for one thing. So here's another version of how you can say what you do. You know how there's so many women out there who unfortunately have either experienced sexual abuse as a child or in an intimate relationship. I know because I was one of those women that experienced it both from my husband, and unfortunately my husband did the same to my child. So that's why my personal mission is to help as many women as possible find their voice. And I've created something called Thrive Alive. And when you're going through this, you feel so alone. And what I do is I let these women first know that they're not alone and they don't have to feel guilty or ashamed. And when that happens, they have an ally that can help them regain their self-esteem and even help them when they most need it in a court to get restraining orders or whatever else they might need to get on with their life. And I just love helping women realize that they're no longer a victim, but in fact, a victor.
I might have a couple tears, honestly.
Taylos said, yes, yeah, that's what it is.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. We're only on the first one. I'm crying.
Yeah. So that reinforces your own story, your passion. You take us on a journey. No one's going to forget that story. Anyone who ever comes in contact with anybody a month, a year, or more from now, who hears about somebody who's experienced this is going to go, oh my God, you got to go to Thrive Alive. It's all, you're not alone. Remember when I said, it's one of we all want to be seen and heard and acknowledged? And that's what you're doing. So thank you for your work. And I can't wait to hear this new version of it and start using it in your own words. And do you see how much more conversational it was? It wasn't talking about modalities. It wasn't talking about accountability or any of those kinds of things. It was very storytelling, conversational. I want to really encourage you to stay in that mode. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
My honor. Thank you.
Awesome. Next we have Ryan, and Ryan is the founder of A Mindful Bride.
Ooh, what a great title.
You got this, Ryan.
Well, now I'm all choked up, so I wasn't prepared for that. Okay, so what I have so far is, you know how brides are stressed over their wedding, especially right now during COVID. I help brides get rid of stress so that they can show up for their partner and live their epic love story. Which when it's shown as text, I usually put marriage in parentheses because I want people to understand that epic love story means marriage, but I haven't quite figured out how to combine those two without just being like, by the way, that means marriage.
I wouldn't get so obsessed with worrying about this. So the name of your company is Mindful Bride, correct? Mm-hmm. And so we know what that is. Let's tap into the pain point. So let's, what are 2 or 3 things brides are most stressed about, especially during COVID? Is the dress not going to look good? Is people aren't going to have a good time? Are they obsessed with the flowers? What is their big stress points?
The biggest one is actually not feeling seen or heard when they want to express their feelings about being sad about the wedding. They're always being told, at least you're alive. Don't complain about that. There's people dying. How could you be so selfish to care about your wedding when that we're in a pandemic? That's definitely the biggest one. And then I would say another big one is just drama. Like the nails come out when there's wedding planning going on. It's family stuff, whether it's your future in-laws trying to be bossy, or your mom wants you to wear her wedding dress from 1983. And so there's boundary issues there.
Yep.
And just the not being seen, not feeling seen or heard, and the boundaries thing, and then
Great.
just taking care of themselves during the process, and then by learning how to take care of themselves now, that's one of the ways that they end up showing up better for their partner in their life.
And how do you help them through this process? What are they hiring you to do? Listen to them? Is it therapy? Is it wedding planning? What is it you're doing?
Well, I have a workshop that I'm putting out, but I really want to have a membership where I provide content for them. Like, I'm not a doctor or a therapist, but I have been married for 13 years, and I've also been in the wedding industry for 10. So I've seen it from all the sides that you can see it from, because I was a bride myself. So I want to have a membership where I offer course type materials on how to release emotions and how to set boundaries and how to take care of yourself. But I like the membership format so that they can be supported all along the way, and then they can continue to be supported even after they're married.
Okay. Got it.
Needs to exist.
All right. So here's a version for you.
Okay.
You know how so many brides today are extra stressed out than they normally would be for their big day, because all the plans, the dreams they've had since they were little girls of what their wedding day was going to be are not possible during a COVID pandemic situation. And as if the stress of getting married isn't enough, they're also being told, don't be selfish, don't feel sad, at least you're healthy. And they don't know where to turn. They're getting it from all ends. They're having in-laws trying to control them. They're not feeling seen and heard for the feelings they're having of being disappointed that things didn't turn out the way they dreamed. And so I created Mindful Bride. And it's not an event planning, because that's just the details of the day. And it's not therapy. It's a hybrid to help the brides with a proven roadmap, step by step, to guide them through all the details, emotional and physical, so that they can still have their dream day, even if it doesn't match what their childhood dream looked like. And when that happens, they feel heard and seen, and they get flexible, and they go from feeling like Bridezilla to feeling like the beautiful bride that they are, and realizing that this whole day is a metaphor for how they're going to live the rest of their married life. And so when they have Mindful Bride working with them, they get off on the right foot to a happily married life.
I love that. Thank you.
You are welcome.
That would
Awesome.
definitely have me asking more, like, ooh, yes, tell me more, definitely.
I was going to say I do after that.
Lovely.
All right. Next up is Marla, and Marla is the founder of Diabetes Made Simple. She also is going after the Guinness World Record of wind-up toys, but I guess that might not be in her elevator pitch, but that's what you see behind her, and we love that.
Love it.
Thank you, Marian. Hi, John. I actually
Hi.
just finished reading your book.
Oh, thanks.
And Marian, that's so funny. As I'm thinking about this, I'm like, I don't know, the wind-up toy thing just really is probably a much more exciting story. But we'll do the diabetes one right now.
Okay.
So here's what I have so far is You know how when diabetics get diagnosed, they have no idea how they're going to live their life now that they have diabetes? I grew up with most of my family suffering with diabetes, and I was the one who was the pillar of strength for the family. I'm a certified health coach, and I work with diabetics one-on-one to figure out how they're going to live a vibrant life by coming up with a customized diet plan that takes into consideration their lifestyle and their taste buds.
Wow,
Okay.
that's amazing, Marla.
Really?
Nice.
Because I just finished his book. That's why. See, it worked already.
Nice.
But I know he's going to make it better.
All right, great. So the feelings that people have when they get diagnosed is they feel overwhelmed.
They feel fearful, they feel overwhelmed, and they feel it's shocking.
Yeah, got it. And so they work with you in your company called Diabetes Made Simple.
Mm-hmm.
And after they figure out how that they don't have to give up everything they love about eating,
Right.
that they they can manage this disease properly. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So here's how I would say that. I love the opening story about the family and everything. I'm not so sure I would jump right in with I'm a certified health coach,
Okay.
because it starts to feel a little cerebral, and we're trying to pull people into a story.
Mm-hmm.
So the minute it was like, oh, now okay, you're qualified to do something. So I'd rather keep it intriguing enough where they would say, well, what kind of qualifications do you have, or something like that, but let them ask that without you having to introduce it. So I would go somewhere along the lines of, you know how so many people, when they get the diagnosis that they're diabetic, the first reaction is shock. Why me? I didn't think this was going to happen to me. Then they go and feel overwhelmed. Oh my God, am I going to die? Am I ever going to be able to have a piece of cake again? Is my life over as I knew it? And then they feel alone. I know, because I went through this, watching all my family members one by one get this diagnosis. And let me tell you, it didn't get any easier for anybody, even though other people had it in our family. So my mission is, I created this company called Diabetes Made Simple, because when we think things are so complex, we get overwhelmed and we get like a deer in headlights. So I simplify the process and help these people, first feel like they're not alone. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And we can create a customized way for them to live their best life and still enjoy life while managing the disease instead of the disease managing them. And when that happens, they feel back in control of their life and they're living their best life. See how I took your title and made it memorable and meaningful?
It's beautiful.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, thank you.
You are welcome. All right.
Awesome. Next up is Rose, and Rose is the founder of Button Those Jeans. She's a hypnotherapist and weight loss coach, and I'm one of her clients.
Love it. Okay.
Yeah, I just usually lead with I'm a hypnotherapist, and that gets people intrigued enough.
Well, let's try this way, because I see the difference between you describing who you help and what problem you solve. It's not about you.
Yes, true.
Right off the
I
get-go.
totally, I was being funny. It's not funny. Okay.
Because they're like, oh, well, you're going to hypnotize me and then I'm going to, walk with, something funny on my hat. So
Exactly.
I'd much rather you be memorable for Button Those Jeans and the outcomes of that than, oh, she's a hypnotherapist. And you're like, well, there's a lot of those. Would you help people quit smoking? We don't want to we want to be known for one thing, like Amazon and books.
Amazon and books. Yeah. So I don't have those cute little 5 questions on my screen, but I'll try and remember, and then we
pull
can
them up if you need them. We
So,
have the technology. Hold on one sec.
Cool.
There
All
you
right.
go.
So you know how there are so many amazing women out there who struggle with their weight. And it really is keeping them from fully living the life that they want to live. I remember when I was 8 years old, I made the connection that my weight and my value as a woman was connected with my weight. And I struggled for the rest of, for many years of my life, thinking that those two things were connected. And it wasn't until I realize that they are not connected and I was able to separate those two, I was able to live my life fully. And so that is what I help women do. I help women break that tie of their value and self-worth as a woman being tied to the shame and blame around food and weight in a signature program that I have put together with a weekly coaching calls and hypnotherapy to help retrain and reframe the brain so that these amazing women can really step up out of the shame and into the fullness of their life.
Great. Okay. There's a lot of great stuff there. And so I'm just going to give you a version that amplifies it even more.
Yeah.
You know how there are so many women out there that are struggling with their weight and their self-image? I know because I was one of them when I was 8 years old. 8 years old. I suddenly connected my self-esteem and value based on how much I weighed. And let me tell you, 8 years old is too early to be going on a diet. And it's a yo-yo cycle. So I am passionate about helping other women like myself get out of this concept. And so I've created something called Button Those Jeans. Because if you've ever tried to put on a pair of jeans that don't fit anymore, you want to blame the dryer. But the reality is you gained weight and you feel horrible. And yet you can beat yourself up and gain even more weight because you feel so bad. So what I do is I close that gap between a woman's self-esteem and their self-worth and their identity and get free of what that scale says. And when you are no longer tied to a number on the scale telling you whether you should feel good about yourself or not only are you buttoning those jeans, but you're free from a life of shame and guilt around food.
Yeah, that.
And you don't even have to say you're a hypnotherapist or that you do weekly coaching calls.
No.
People are going to go, how do you do that? I want that feeling. Yes. And you see how I told that little story that everyone can relate to? They see themselves in that story where you button the jeans. Oh, it must be the dryer. Right?
Yes.
Very conversational, relatable. Now we're going to remember that image and the name of your company at the same time. Yeah.
Spot on, man. Yep, that's it.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure we are all hungry for more of John's wisdom. So, John, I would love to know, how can people get more of the storytelling wisdom that you teach?
Sure. Well, the program, the digital platform, is 10-minute modules that are 10 days. So I say 10 minutes for 10 days, or binge watch it like it's Netflix over a weekend. And you get little quizzes and you really make sure you've absorbed the knowledge. And the problem is, this elevator pitch is a little story. And it's the tip of the iceberg of what's in the course and what's in the Facebook group. So it's not just, oh, I take this course and then I never work with John again, or I hear from John again. No. It's an ongoing relationship. So you can say, oh, I listened to you fix my elevator pitch. I got the replay. I'm still struggling saying it a little bit. Or I'm now talking to a potential client about getting my help, whether it's as a bride or as someone struggling with weight issues or self-esteem issues or trauma, or all the wonderful things that all of you are doing. And I'm still not quite sure, we all have what I call case studies, right? Like, oh, here's an example of a client I helped. And I'm going to teach you in the course and in the Facebook group how to turn those boring case studies into a case story. So storytelling, the elevator pitch, is the tip of the iceberg. And then it goes into, oh, now how do I use storytelling to pull people in to my story? And then once they've understood that, how do I allow them to do it? So the old way of selling is, this is what I got. You want to buy? And it's kind of like what Abraham Maslow said, if the only tool in your toolbox is a hammer, you go around looking for nails to hit. So what you get is a whole new set of storytelling skills. So when that happens, after you've told a case story, I'm going to give you an example of when I worked with Quinn, one of my students. She works at a medical healthcare company, and they make equipment that they use to scope and put a camera down you to see if you have cancer or not. And I said, what are you saying to doctors to get them to use your equipment versus another piece of equipment? She's like, well, I'm saying, our equipment makes the surgeries go 30% faster. And I'm like, well, I guess that's a nice little feature fact, but there's really no story. Imagine, Rose, if you're saying, I'm going to get you to lose 10%, you're going to get down to 12% body fat or whatever, it's numbers, right? Or, whatever the thing, brides are going to, it's less about that. So I said, well, let's zoom out. So she had her elevator pitch. And then she's like, well, I said, what does it even mean? How long is the surgery without your equipment? 2.5 hours. Okay, do the math for me. What's 30% faster? 1.5 hours. Oh, okay. So you're going to tell the story of a doctor you worked with to another potential doctor who would buy it. So here's what that case story sounds like. Imagine how happy Dr. Higgins was at Long Beach Memorial last year when he was using our equipment and could go out to the patient's family in the waiting room an hour earlier than expected, because for that family, every minute feels like an hour. So when he came out an hour earlier than expected and said, good news, your loved one doesn't have cancer, they're going to be okay, they were so happy. They were extra happy because it was good news early. And he turned to the acquaintance and said, oh, that's the reason I became a doctor, for moments like that. And as she told that story to another doctor, he said, that's why I became a doctor. I want your equipment. She wasn't getting into the tech specs. She wasn't getting into, do you want to buy this or not? She told him a story, and that doctor saw himself in that story. So I can work with you, Ryan, on the bride story. I can work with you, Adrian, on the sexual trauma stories, the weight stories, Marla, all of your stories. You have people you've helped, the diabetes people. Once we have a story of someone else that has gone through your process and other people see themselves, then all of your ways of engaging people, because nobody wants to be pushy, right? In fact, the old way of selling for my sales training was always be closing, ABC. And so the acronym I want to leave you with is ABK. Always be kind. Be kind to the way that we say some negative self-talk all the time to ourselves. And we would never say it to other people. Oh, you're so fat. You're a horrible bride. You're a loser because you got diabetes. It's your fault you got sexually abused. On and on and on, right? So we got to start with ABK. And then we can do it to the people that we're working with. And then we can give the kindness to our clients that you're coaching. Because without that, so the old way of selling is you want to buy this. The new way is, does that sound like the kind of journey you'd like to go on? It's literally that. Here's my, if you want to learn how to tell better stories, to feel better about yourself, have good elevator pitches, enroll people in a whole new way through storytelling that incorporates your own story of origin into the process, and then figure out, how do I go from invisible to irresistible, and how do I get unstuck along the way? Then I would love to work with each and every one of you, because I can tell from just working with you in these 2 minutes what I would do. And she posted, the page there in the chat room if you want to see more about it. And there's some great bonuses like being in the private Facebook group, and I mail you a copy of my book if you don't already have it. But because of this group, I'm going to give each of you an hour bonus. And when clients hire me, it's $500 an hour. And the course is $497. So you're really doubling the value right there. So after you go through the course, in addition to getting to be in the group Facebook group, I'm going to work with you. And I did this with Marian and her team for an hour. so that you can really get a fast start on storytelling. And now you can see Marian and Taylos can talk about what that hour was like for them. And I believe they are even going to give you another bonus on top of mine. So we're trying to create as much value here for you as possible, so that if you feel moved and touched by hearing your own story, imagine what it feels like in the Facebook group to hear other people tell your story. You just feel seen and heard and acknowledged in a whole nother way. And that empowers you to be the best at what you can do.
Yeah. So like John just said, we can't have him giving away a free hour without us giving away a free hour. So if you guys choose to invest in this course with John, he'll give you a coaching call, and you will also get a coaching call with whoever you would like to work with, whether it's shifting your energy with Melanie, or going after your goals and getting clarity with Taylos, or boosting your productivity with me. We'll also give you a free coaching call.
That's a great combination, because if you've got your story down, then your energy's already shifted. And if you know what your story is going to be and who your ideal avatar or clients are, that clarity you get with Taylos. And then maybe you're feeling overwhelmed by your inbox, or I don't know what to do next to tell my story. And that productivity whiz known as Marian can make you say, oh no, these are the 5 next things you need to do. And don't get distracted by this and this. So that combination, any one of those 3 on top of mastering storytelling, is what makes this whole process. Because here's our mission. The better we help the 4 of you, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it's a ripple
And anyone
effect.
watching the replay.
And the replay.
Or watching live who didn't want to jump on the Zoom room for some reason.
Yes,
we see you, and this offer is available to you as well. You can just look at the post or in the description, and you will see the link.
Yeah. And so, we're just going to offer this for, people that are here now, because we can't, I don't have the time to give everyone a bonus that's in my course. So, but I wanted to do this for this group in particular, because I just keep thinking, if I help all of you and become better at what you do, the ripple effect of how many people that have struggled with weight and stressed out about their job, bride's day, or don't feel like they get it, that their feelings of sadness aren't worthy, how many sad brides there are, right? If we can help one more sad bride, or one more sexually abused woman, or one more person with diabetes not feel alone, or one more person that can't button their jeans realize that there's somebody who cares, then I'm living my purpose. I'm helping you use storytelling to help people in what your specialty is. And then that makes me joyful. And that's what I love to do. That's my small little way of contributing to making the world better, is helping you, and then all the people that get affected by what you do.
What I really like about it, and working with you and watching you retell stories is, and especially knowing the people and knowing what they do and how they've helped provide, is being able to see, yes, that's what they do. Yes, that's the truth coming out. And so that's what's so wonderful to see, to be able to hone that in and to really put yourself out there and be seen the way that you're wanting to be, wanting to present yourself and be seen. So that's something that I really appreciate that you've helped clarify for us in the group. So thank you so much for that, John. I appreciate it very much.
My pleasure.
I want to open it up. If any of you guys have any questions for John, now's the time, because he's here with us live.
Yes,
right. Go ahead, Ryan.
Go ahead.
So I was just curious if there's a specific way to sort of translate the verbiage from speaking it to writing it and using it for things like social media content and email marketing and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. One of my clients, Mark, we crafted his elevator pitch, and then we had very few small tweaks, and he made it part of his LinkedIn profile. Boom. Then what we would do is we would work with you in the Facebook group on your case stories instead of case studies, and turn that into an email. And then maybe even shoot a short little video about someone you've helped and post that on Instagram. And so the stories become across multiple platforms. Even just your own story of origin will become a social media post. Does that answer your
Okay.
question?
Yeah, thank you.
Adrian, I think I saw your hand go up.
Yes, thank you. I was curious. I know that I had mentioned how I have multiple different, 2 different businesses
Yes.
that I'm a part of. And you were saying that sharing my story could be still used even to lead into the foundation. And I'm just curious if that's the case always. I guess would I always be, I do have a lot of other things. I'm in a documentary and I'm producing a documentary. So I do have my own brand of Adrian
Yes.
Ruan. So it makes sense then. It doesn't devalue any of the other parts of the business that I'm in your experience?
My first answer to you is Oprah.
Mm.
Oprah's story of being abused does not diminish all the other things she's done. It's part of her brand, not in spite of. That's what we remember. She's the ultimate rags to riches, which is one of the storytelling genres, overcoming all those obstacles. And that was just one of many that she had to deal with. So it's always about your own story in everything you touch, because that's what makes
Thank
it you.
Thank you.
Yes, Rose.
Oh,
Oh, then Marla.
Sorry, Marla. Yeah, John, love everything about you. I'm super excited. I'm on your website and I want to click the button, but for some reason I'm like, where's the little piece that says I get my one-on-one with you? Is that just like a
That's a bonus that's not part of, that's only for this group. So that's how special it is. So you'll see all the other bonuses, but it's not something I offer to everybody. So that makes it even more special. It's like, not every little girl gets, the Barbie trailer or whatever you want under the tree. So it's there, believe me. So yes, you click that button and enroll now. I'll send you the link to book in the hour with me, just like I did Marian and her team. And it's best after the course. So.
It's so awesome to be a part of this group.
10 days. 10 minutes, 10 days, is that what you said? Sorry.
Yes.
Got it. It's in my brain. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so the 4 of you are going to get that exclusive one-on-one with John. He's only offering it to the 4 of you who got your elevators pitch fixed. And anyone else who would like to click the link, you can get the one-on-one with one of us, but because you didn't come on the show, maybe next time you'll show up live.
Okay, I had a question.
Yes, Marla.
John, it kind of going, tagging on to what Ryan said. I'm doing a lot of writing right now, and I actually used to be a copywriter, so that's not an issue for me. But what I'm not good at is the storytelling part of it. And so taking this, the elevator pitch is great, but is there a way that I could take it to that next level where I'm actually telling a lot of stories through different, right now I'm doing eBooks.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be doing some videos as well. So
Yes.
would I learn that in this group?
You would. In fact, that's why Rob Angel joined, because he said, John, I've got so many stories in my head and I can't figure out how to tell them to an audience so that they can see themselves in the story. And I'm being interviewed for my book on a podcast and I don't know how to make it concise or have a good soundbite. So in terms of what you're trying to do is, and I've actually worked with screenwriters who are great storytellers. They can craft a movie or a TV show, but they don't know how to tell a story to get it sold. They have to pitch it. So once you have the structure of what makes a good story, then we apply that to eBooks and all kinds of things and how to lengthen and strengthen or lengthen and shorten whatever you need it for, whatever format. And you would just post that in the Facebook group going, hey, can we cover this in the group call, or can you take a look at this? And I have a couple quick questions from the course as it relates to this. Am I missing something? Or what would you say that could make it better? And so you get a lot of support in that. So the storytelling touches all areas of your career and your business and even your personal life. So I know Adrian has a daughter. I got interviewed by NBC last September. I'm back to school. And they said, so many kids come home from school and they ask their parents, the parents ask the kid, hey, you know, what's your child's name, Adrian?
Her name is Victoria.
You're like, Victoria, how was school? Fine. Okay. One word answers. Anybody relate? So I said, let's ask a different question. Victoria, tell me a story about the best part of your day. Victoria thinks, do I want to tell what happened on the way to school, at school, or on the way home? And then you're like, and then I'm going to share with you a story about the best part of my day. And even if you're quarantined together, you can still start using storytelling. And if Victoria starts in the middle of the story, you're like, all right, what time of day was this? Where were you? And start teaching her how to be a better storyteller. So it is lots of impact.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Any more questions?
Good. Well, I look forward to getting to work with all of you. Thank you. It's going to be fun.
Awesome. Yeah, I love John's community so much. I'm in it, so we might see each other in it.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, definitely read this when you get it because it's so good. And yeah, we're so delighted, John, that you took the time to come on our show today. We are huge fans, and we're so glad to have partnered with you in this way. So thank you all so much. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Our special guest will be Ryan Klutz.
Yay.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Talk
Awesome.
soon.
Thanks, John. See you soon.
Bye.